Cable cast on is the next step. Cable cast on is begun with the first stitch as a knitted cast on. So I knit my new stitch through and pop it on my left needle. But after that we go through between the two stitches and knit the new stitch through and pop it back on the needle. Again, I pop that stitch back on that left needle from underneath. So through between the two, bring the new stitch through. It's very easy for this cast on to become too tight. It does produce a very strong bound looking edge, which we'll take a look at in a minute. So the first stitches works as knitted cast on, and then you move to knitting through between the needles. And you have to control the spacing quite carefully to make sure that it's both even and not too tight for your future edge. And again, this can be done if you hold your yarn in your left hand through between the two stitches, yarn anti-clockwise around the needle when viewed from the tip, and back on the left needle. Needle through. You've got to make sure the needle comes through completely between the two strands. Bring the new stitch through and experiment with and check your tension. And this is what it looks like along the edge. Let's see what happens to a cable cast on if you just pull it off the needles. It doesn't have the same solid structure that knitted cast on has. This is what cable cast on looks like. It doesn't have that open loopy look at the bottom, and if we sort of roll it over, you can see where you've twisted those loops along the lower edge, and it makes almost a double line of yarn along that lower edge. It's got a little elasticity. This is about right for this particular piece of knitting, but you have to be quite careful that this doesn't wind up really tight and your knitting bulge out afterwards. And here we have the classic baggy first stitch, but because we've used the tail adjustable slip knot, if that bothers us, we can firm that up. Again, I've used a contrasting colour for my first row of actual knitting, so all of the pink is the cast on edge. And it's helpful to learn to identify your different types of cast on and what they look like. Here are the cable and knitted cast on edges side by side. The one on the right is the knitted cast on, the one on the left is the cable cast on. Now what happens if we were to drop a stitch? It would be very unfortunate to drop a stitch all this way because stitches really don't want to run away, but it's just interesting from a structural point of view. We get down to the cast on and this will quite easily untangle itself and it will pull out and make a line of thread along the lower edge. It will stop at that point, it won't go any further. It's locked in here and it's locked in there, but it's actually quite difficult to reconstruct. It's very easy to knit back into the chain of a knitted cast on. It's very easy to reconstruct a long tail cast on, but with cable cast on, if it comes undone right down to the cast on edge, the easiest way to fix it is to unpick it and start again. It is possible to reconstruct it, but it's not easy. I hope you've enjoyed the quick look at cable and knitted cast-ons. They're both very useful. They can both be made at the end of a row to extend a row of knitting, and they both have their places in your regular knitting repertoire.